Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. All about nutrition from your favorite dietitian. Everything you need to digest in your mind. Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. Making you healthier one bite at a time. With Tony. Woo!
Hello and welcome to the Tips with Tony podcast. I'm Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time. This month, if you're listening to this in the month of March, it is National Nutrition Month. I absolutely love National Nutrition Month because it's an opportunity for registered dietitians to educate populations about nutrition and healthy lifestyles, and also to give credit where credit's due. One day in that month of March, we celebrate National Registered Dietitian Day, RD Day, and I absolutely love it. It's really a great opportunity to educate the public about the difference between a nutritionist and a registered dietitian. In short, all registered dietitians are nutritionists. However, not all nutritionists are registered dietitians. We are the nutrition experts in the field. It requires a minimum of 5 years to attain our degree, and we are always educating ourselves about scientific-based evidence to make sure that we're staying up to date with the research and staying credentialed to continue to enforce positive behavior change. So I absolutely love registered dietitians. I absolutely love National Nutrition Month, and this month's theme is how to personalize your plate. So I wanted to talk about what that actually means, right? So in order for us to personalize our plate, we need to make sure that we're eating for us, right? So although we have general dietary guidelines that encourage, 2 to 3 servings of fruit a day and 4 to 5 servings of veggies today, and around 20 grams of protein at each meal. This is lots of fiber-rich foods, water, movement, all the things, right? There's a lot of things that you can incorporate in a healthy lifestyle that are really general that you don't necessarily need to personalize or specify. With that said, we all are at different ages, different genders, we have different past medical histories, we're at risk for certain diseases, all of those things. So it's important to make sure we eat to that. And one way that the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, so basically the umbrella in which registered dietitians learn under, the one way that we're doing that in incorporating National Nutrition Month and bringing awareness to personalize your plate is actually dividing people into age groups. So one way you could almost argue of how to personalize it is make sure you're eating for your age group. When you're at a certain age, you're at risk for certain things, and your nutrition should be prioritized in different ways based off of how old you are, which makes sense, right? So I kind of want to just read you based off of what the recommendations from the Academy are, and I'm just going to literally read right from the website, but then obviously we'll explain if I feel it's necessary. So if you're listening to this and you are in your teens or in between your teens and your 20s, like your early 20s, right? So not 20 quite yet. I would say teens, 20-ish, maybe college. Let's say college, because there is the next segment is about from your 20s to your 30s, so that can be a little confusing, right? Which also, let me first preface that a lot of this information you can kind of apply into many different stages of your life, but we want to make sure that the specifics drive home. So if you only focus on one thing, focus on the one thing of what's recommended in your age group, okay? So if you're in your teens all the way up to about your 19 or so, then you want to be focusing on building bone density by eating and drinking calcium-rich foods and beverages such as fat-free or low-fat dairy, milk or yogurt, or calcium-fortified soy beverages. Non-dairy sources of calcium include fortified cereals, beans, some leafy greens, and canned salmon with bones. You could also have fresh salmon, and the reason why they recommend canned salmon in this particular case is because most teens or college students might not have accessibility to that, so you can get it in a can. But I recommend fresh salmon if possible. Most fish that have bones are going to have a good source of calcium. Fortified milks, whether it's soy milk or cow's milk or even a fortified like almond milk, be totally fine. Leafy greens, even things like broccoli, are a great source of calcium. And in consuming adequate amounts of calcium is going to help build your bone density. And this is important because in your mid-20s, your ability to build bone density actually stops. It starts to decline. So this is your opportunity to build up as much as you can so that as you get older, it doesn't decline so bad where you end up with osteoporosis, okay? This is all about preventative care, and this is one way in which you can do that, all right? Now, if you're in your 20s to 30s, you want to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward to reduce your risk of chronic diseases such as type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and obesity, which I say a little bit lightly because I think that you can prevent type 2 diabetes and heart disease without struggling with obesity. So this is where the recommendations that are provided from the Academy, I'm able to kind of look at the bigger approach, understand where these guidelines are coming from, and make my recommendations based off of that, okay? So the way in which we're going to reduce these chronic diseases are by eating more dietary fiber, so including things like whole grains, legumes, vegetables, fruits, nuts, and seeds. And that's pretty common of a general recommendation, right? Now, if you are a woman of the childbearing age, you're trying to get pregnant, start now by trying to include sources of folate such as beans and peas and dark leafy veggies, and eat foods that are fortified with folic acid such as bread, cereals, and other grain products. A folic acid supplement may also be needed and should be discussed with a healthcare provider. So that's if you're trying to get pregnant. It's important that you're doing that even before you're actually pregnant, bringing up increasing your folate because that will help with the development of your baby, okay? But in general, in your 20s and 30s, we want to make sure you're increasing the dietary fiber, and that's going to help reduce your risk of diabetes or high cholesterol. It's also going to help with fullness so you don't overconsume if we find yourself that you tend to be somebody who is an overeater or you struggle with overeating, okay? Now, if you're in your 30s and 40s, you want to continue to eat a variety of nutritious foods, so very similar to what you would do in your 20s and your 30s, but you want to especially make room for plenty of fruits and vegetables, whole grains, beans, peas, lentils, and making sure that your foods are rich in vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and dietary fiber. So now we start to incorporate making sure that your fruits and your veggies are things that are going to prevent things that continue to cause inflammation, okay? So not much difference there between your 20s and 30s and your 30s and 40s. It's just making sure that you're getting a variety in your diet. And what I find interesting about this is that most people, as they get older, they start to want to lose weight more, so their diets become super restrictive and their variety in their diet becomes less, right? So we want to make sure we're increasing the variety in our diet. In between your 40s and 50s, you now want to fine-tune your healthy eating habits and continue to incorporate regular physical activity as your body changes due to fluctuating hormones and a slowing metabolism. Also, continue focus on ways to limit foods and beverages with added sugars, salt, and saturated fat. So now your increased risk for things like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, these become higher as you get older, but more importantly, your hormones start fluctuating, your metabolism starts to slow down. And so as long as you have healthy eating habits in place, but maybe you're not seeing any progress, that's probably because maybe your physical activity is not where it needs to be. So slowly start to engage in more physical activity to kind of balance this out, okay? And then if you're in your 60s or beyond, you're going to continue to include a variety of protein-rich foods to maintain bone strength and incorporate strength-building activities to maintain muscle mass. Good sources of protein include seafood, lean cuts of meat, eggs, beans, tofu, and they say nuts. I think nuts are more of a healthy fat, but it's okay to consume. But there's some protein in nuts, okay? Animal-based protein foods also provide vitamin B12, which is a concern for some older adults. Foods also may be fortified with vitamin B12, or a supplement may be recommended by your healthcare provider. So that is specific. You do not need a vitamin B12 supplement if you are not deficient. And as long as you're consuming animal-based protein foods, then you should have enough vitamin B12. But if you are a vegan, then you might want to consider getting a vitamin B12 supplement. It's important that you are consuming these protein-rich foods, especially if you're doing strength-building activities, because as you get older, like I said, you kind of hit your peak muscle mass, bone density, in between your mid-20s, early 30s, right? Not to say you can't kind of build a little bit after that, but it's really, really, really challenging. So our goal is to just prevent it from declining. And as you get older, the declining process of your bone mass accelerates. So to prevent it from going down really quickly, we want to make sure we're including a lot of protein-rich foods. This is going to maintain your muscle mass. It's also going to help with your metabolism, and it will support your other organs and your tissues as well. All right. So just a quick little recap. If you're in your teens to your 20s, make sure you're focusing on building your bone density, right? To preventing you having to work harder when you get older. In your 20s and 30s, include lots of foods high in dietary fiber to get used to incorporating those foods so you can prevent things like diabetes and high heart disease. Making sure if you are trying to get pregnant, you're consuming lots of foods rich in folate. And I would also argue if you're in your 30s and 40s, that applies because I think people are having babies later. So in your 30s and 40s, continue to incorporate nutrients-dense foods. Just really make sure you're focusing on those antioxidant-rich foods, variety in the diet. That will be super important. In your 40s and 50s, make sure you're continuing those healthy behaviors, but increase that physical activity. And in your 60s and beyond, not only increase that physical activity, but make sure you're incorporating some strength training and also some more protein in your diet. That's super, super important. Also, as you age, your metabolism slower, you might not need as many calories. And so if you're taking in less calories, then we want to make sure that what you're eating is nutrient dense, and making sure protein's present will help with that. All right. So I know that was a lot. And honestly, there's probably some information that you can take from all of those different age groups, but I'm curious from you. Send me a message on Instagram at tips_with_Tony with an I, and let me know what's one small change, maybe a meal you're going to add, a snack you're going to add, a movement or exercise you're going to add that is aligned with your age group, and let me know how that goes. All right. So I hope you have a wonderful National Nutrition Month, and I hope you found this information helpful. If you did, take a screenshot of it, share it on your story, and let me know what your takeaways were. That is it for me today. As always, I'm Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time.